Hello everybody, welcome back to Automation. We are continuing on our American Engine Recreation mini-series. Today we're going to move on to some Mopar engines, primarily Dodge motors to start with, but they're all kind of the same. They were used in pretty much everything in the Chrysler envelope family of engines there. And we got two to start with that are pretty much two of the most requested Chrysler engines that I have seen, but there is, I would say, about six to eight engines I'm going to cover in the Chrysler group, and then we're going to move on to some truck motors, I believe. I've seen quite a few requests for those as well, and that would be a nice little change. You know, I've been primarily sticking with the high performance aspect of things, so maybe we'll change gears a little bit after these and do some truck motors. But before we start that, there's something I have to do, and that is fix something. Last episode we wrapped up the Ford series, and I made a little mistake on this EcoBoost motor. So let's revise this. And what I did was I was building, there's three different versions. There's a 1.0, a 1.6, and a 2.0 version of this motor, and soon to be a 2.3 liter version. And what I did was I built the 1.6, but I was trying to get it to the specs of the 2.0, so I had it a little confused. I was trying to build the Focus ST motor, but I was using the Fiesta ST motor like size and whatnot, so that's why I was struggling so much. So let's fix that real quick. I need to bring the bore up to an 87.5, so that's a pretty dramatic change. And the stroke up to an 83.1. So neither of those are the same. Everything else here will be the same though. Compression ratio I want to check. Nope, that is the same. Okay, so now we were previously making 253 and 245. And I was looking for, let's see, I was looking for 240 horsepower at 5,500 RPM and 270 foot-pounds of torque. I think those numbers are even a little bit different than what I was aiming for before. I think I was aiming for this 253. That is only with the overboost, which is not the numbers listed on this motor. So we're going to aim for that 240 and 270 mark, and we'll see what we can do. So pretty much instantly you can see there that I'm making way more power than I need to, and that is because I tuned the heck out of this motor to try and make those ridiculous numbers. So we can bring this back down to normal. I believe it was 17 would have been the factory boost number, and I want to say I have, let's see, a pretty aggressive darn cam in there too, so let's bring that down to like a 60. And we'll just quick test this real quick. 281, 264. That's still a little bit high, so we can even bring this down a little bit more. 273, 263. So it looks like our horsepower is actually going to be more towards that higher number we were aiming for before, without too much of a problem. Let's see, we could probably bring the timing down a little, even a little bit more off the cam profile, which will help that MTBF a little bit. 271, 262, I can go a little bit more than 270, 261. Okay, that's much better looking. The whole chart looks a little bit better. You know, that's a typical small turbo motor kind of curve. I don't really like this steep dip here, but it's kind of the nature of the beast. We're getting quite a bit of torque fall off at the end, but overall we're hitting numbers we needed to see, and it's a lot better than it was before, that's for darn sure. I don't want to spend too much time on this one since we do have a lot to cover today. So there we go. I'll save that one and I'll just delete that. 1.6 later on. There it is. Okay. So now let's move on to our Chrysler products. And we're going to start with the Dodge 318, which is the LA 318 V8. And we're going to go back to 1968. This is a motor that was featured in virtually every Dodge Chrysler product that needed a V8. Oops, too far. From 1968 until it was not completely phased out until 1996. So that is a very significant lifespan. You don't see that in basically any other motor. Okay, so we are going to go with a 99.31, which we only get a 3, but 99.3 by 84. It's a pretty short stroke motor. And that gives us a 317.5, round that up to 318. Obviously we have a little bit less bore than, but only like 0.01 millimeters, not a big deal. So this motor is, I would say it would be similar to your Chevy 305, your Ford 5.0s. You know, it's not as big as a 350 or a Ford 351, and it never made those kind of numbers. And this is kind of the workhorse motor. You know, it was found in your Darts, Challengers, your Chargers, your base ones. If you didn't get a slant or a straight 6, this is the motor you stepped up from there. And then later in its life, or even from the beginning, it was found in your Rams, your Ram Charger vans, and then up until 96, it was found in the Dodge Dakota. So very much so a workhorse motor. The bottom end is all cast. Like I said, this is not a fancy motor, so no fancy forged steel crank or anything like that. And it basically didn't need them. That wouldn't add anything to this motor. It is push rod, and we're going to go up on the quality of that push rod system. It is cast iron heads and a compression ratio of 9.2. So pretty low, not obnoxiously low, but pretty low. Let's keep that cam profile at normal for now. And let's see, we're gonna go with some plain, just plain black steel valve covers, rocker covers. No turbos, not that we have the option to. 68. Fuel system is carbureted with a 2-barrel carburetor. And we are going to go with just a single 2-barrel. And then we'll do a standard intake. That looks about right. I wish you could paint the intake manifold. That would be cool. That'd be a pretty simple little thing that you could change, but not completely necessary. We're going to go with regular leaded. And let's see, probably a 13.2, maybe a 13.1. Keep the ignition timing at 50. RPM limit. This is an old enough motor that RPM limit is something that's a little bit of a mystery. Things I saw were that most of these vehicles had a red line of about 5,000 to 5,200. So I'm going to go 5,100 RPM. That should keep us pretty safe in all regards. Exhaust. Oddly, this motor I was able to find which type of exhaust it had on it, which was something I've not really seen on anything else. But it was plainly listed. So I had cast log headers with a single exhaust on a V8, and we need to make, let's see, that should be enough. 2.5 should cover it. No cat. And we'll just have a reverse flow muffler on there and nothing else, and that will do it. Alrighty, so we are looking to make 230 horsepower at 4,400 RPM. That's why that RPM limit didn't really matter. And 260 foot-pounds at 1,600 RPM. That is questionable. This motor I saw listed from 260 foot-pounds all the way up to like 330 foot-pounds. The latter seems a little unrealistic to me, but if it happens to do that, we will let that slide because I did see it listed. So let's see what we do. We do nothing. We blow up pretty quick, it looks like. Bad things happening. Ooh, way off on the octane. Way off. So we only have how much to work with? 87. That would mean we'd have to take a significant amount of timing away from it. Give it a little bit more fuel mix. Try a little bit more camera profile. And hope that it comes down. 89, still fighting that. And it's running rich, so that's no good. This single 2-barrel carburetor is probably what's holding us back. There's not a whole lot I can do about that either. Even if I take the timing all the way down, I don't think that's gonna get us there. Nope, 88.8. So this is something I haven't really run into before. I have the compression ratio correct, yes. I can't really go too much crazier with that camera profile. It's gonna kill our torque numbers. 88.6, and it didn't really help that much. So unfortunately, there's not a whole lot I can do besides running it on super leaded. That's not really accurate. I think there should probably be somewhere in between here, perhaps. But I mean that's what we have to work with. We know the compression ratio. That's a set thing, and that's probably that and this carburetor probably was holding it back. So I think we're just gonna have to let that slide for now, and bring some of this timing back because we won't need all of that with our octane available. All right, so now we should start to see numbers that are somewhat more realistic. And would you look at that? They did not lie. 322 foot-pounds of torque. Still running a little rich. So you can take off some fuel. 13.2. Hopefully that will give us that little bit of bump in horsepower that we need. Still just a touch short, but we got a little bit of octane to work with. Still running rich, again with that carb. So let's go all the way down to 13.4. Looks like we're still safe. Let's do a quick test. 229, no longer running rich. I can give it just a tick more ignition timing. And 230. So wow, yeah, they were definitely not kidding on that torque being so high. 330 foot-pounds of torque, but only 230 horsepower. That's within the numbers I saw. So yeah, that's pretty much why I would say this motor was so commonly found in trucks, especially the bigger trucks. It was featured in Ram, I want to say, up until the 80s, maybe the early 90s, and really there was only variants of this motor that were found in Rams after that, up until the modern times. So definitely what you would consider a truck motor. So let's go ahead and name this guy. Just gonna name it the Dodge 318. And now we're gonna change gears a little bit, but we're gonna stay in the same family of motors. This is still considered an LA motor, but it's pretty significantly different. So let's go back to the bottom end, and we're gonna increase the bore and the stroke. We're gonna go up to 103. 103 by 84, so the stroke stays the same. And we're going to go with a forged steel crank. And what we are building is a 340. Now the 340 was found in your Challenger, your Charger, your Dart, your Super Bee, The Duster, the Plymouth Duster, the Barracuda. This was the equivalent of a, I would say, a 350 Chevy. You know, your Windsor 351s. It was the high-performance small block motor. So, if you didn't want to pay the money for a big block, you didn't want the gas mileage for a big block. This is the high pony small block motor from Dodge this era. So here we go. On the top end, all going to stay the same, but our compression ratio is going to come up to a 10.5. The cam profile, it has a more aggressive cam in it, so maybe we'll do a 45 there too. But other than that, no. We'll put some finned valve covers on there because it's, you know, it's a more expensive, sportier motor. So we'll spring for some nicer valve covers. Another thing we get to do is get rid of that stupid 2-barrel carb. Now this motor either came with a 4-barrel carb single, or you could get triple twins. So that would be the 6-pack. I think we're going to do the 6-pack for now. The numbers I pulled were for the 4-barrel, but everything I read said that the 6-pack and the 4-barrel produced the same numbers, so we may not actually need to change that back. And I like the look of the triple twins, so that's that. Alrighty, so let's see, we can bring this fuel mix up now that we have some proper carbs on there. And let's see, we can go up to a dual exhaust. The 2.5 should be fine. We'll keep that same muffler setup. That seemed to work pretty well. We're going to put some short cast headers on there though, because I actually made an attempt to make power out of this motor. Not to speak bad of the 318, but that's just not what it was made for. You know, it was made for an all-round motor, and this was made for an actual like muscle car based motor. So. One more thing we're going to change, we're going to bring that RPM limit up just a little bit, up to 5,500. We don't have any kind of forged pistons or connecting rods or anything like that. And that is because it's still not a very high revving motor. It just has that forged steel crank because it makes a pretty significant amount of torque, even in comparison to the 318. Alrighty, so now for the part you've been waiting for. How much power does it make? We are looking for 275 horsepower at 5,000 RPM, 340 foot-pounds of torque at 3,200 RPM. And both of those numbers are a little bit, they have a little bit of wiggle room in them. Those are numbers from 1968, and they are probably not as accurate as today's horsepower and torque readings. And it's highly suggested that those were pretty restrictive numbers, that they could have produced a little bit more than that, even from the factory. But let's see how close we are. Sounded pretty restricted, as if maybe it was running into some knock, and yet that was the case. And we're running into valve float as well, which means we can up the quality here, but probably bring down the RPM limit. Since we're making max power at 5,000 RPM, not very important that we keep that RPM limit too high. It's just not going to be to our benefit at all, really. Let's see, let's bring the timing back just a little bit and give it even more of an aggressive cam profile. It is noted to have a pretty darn aggressive cam in it, so no harm in doing that. This chart looks a little bit more friendly. Oh yeah, look at that torque, straight up to 372 and 325 horsepower. That's kind of what I expected to happen. And we're still knocking, so it's not even making as much as it possibly could. So we need to reduce that timing even a little bit more. be down to 30. And I'm going to pull a little bit of cam off of it as well. Let's do a quick test and see what that does. Engine is running rich, so I have to pull back that fuel mix once again. Okay, that gets rid of that. But look at our numbers, 365 foot-pounds of torque and 308 horsepower. So that's kind of what I meant when I said 275 horsepower is a very, it's a very poor claim for this motor. It was definitely making more than that, and that's just kind of, it has part to do with the technologies they had to measure horsepower and torque in this era, and it has part to do with just not wanting to show all your cards. They didn't want everybody to know how much power it was actually making. They wanted you to just feel how much power it was making. Let's see, is there anything I can do to bring those back down a little bit? I could reduce that timing even more, maybe down to a 20. I think I can reduce the RPM limit a little bit more too, just to help it live a little bit longer. But other than that, there's not a whole lot I can do. We could put a more restrictive exhaust system on there, but then we may actually pick up a little power with that. We'll see. Yeah, nothing we're gonna do is gonna reduce that power down to 275. That is for sure. So let's go ahead and label this Dodge 440 six-pack. I'll save that. But there is something I want to test real quick. I want to see, just to see what that 4-barrel single setup would do, and if that would reduce our numbers. So maybe that six-pack actually was something that added a bunch of power to it. Let's find out. Bingo! 279 and 345. Now those numbers look like what we should be expecting. So I would say that definitely had something to do with it. So I'm going to go ahead and save this motor separate from the six-pack. It's just a regular Dodge 440. Because to me, they are two completely different motors. This one is your average, you know. This is the one if you were stepping up from a 318, this is the one you got. If you wanted just a little bit more, you got a car with six-pack in it. And you can get that in a AAR TA CUDA or something in, you know, one of the high-performance packages on a Mopar car in this era. So we'll save that one as well. And I think that's going to do it for today. So hopefully the Mopar Chrysler guys are happy now that we're building some of those motors. And there is quite a few more to do, and we will look at those next time. As always, thanks for watching.